Okay, we are here with the MEMS version of the programmable spectral processor, Model 296. This thing has, let's see if I remember this. It's 3 switches, 5 knobs, 16 sliders, and 61 jack input and output.
Really? Oh, yeah, CV and tiny jacks. Yeah, wow. 61?
61.
Man.
Wow. It's so dense. It's so dense. Like, I mean, I'm drawn to it, but then everything kind of, it makes sense somehow. It doesn't feel, I guess in my eyes, overly cluttered.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I believe you that it's 61, but I also kind of can't believe it. And I've always loved the blue and purple alternating on the envelope follower outputs.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it looks like there aren't that many there.
Yeah, you kind of, you just start kind of segmenting things off. I also just love how, you have to kind of say what the thing is, right, in this envelope follower section, but you don't have a ton of space because you've got all these different sections. So, it just starts numbering things at 5.
5, yeah.
And then it only goes to 9, and then it switches over to A, B, C, D.
But that's actually not number 5.
Well, because they start at 0.
Oh,
so even down here.
That's right, yeah. I mean, it's a 0 index array, yeah.
Which if you...
That's hexadecimal 0 to F.
There you go.
Yep.
Down here, it's cuts off at 5 and picks back up at A in the program inputs.
I never noticed that that's hexadecimal. I wish I'd noticed that before we started recording so that I could have prepared a 20-minute talk about how that's awesome. But yeah, it starts at 0. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, because, the 296E version it does label everything from 1 to 16. So I guess they just had more space, but he just wanted to keep everything. Yeah.
That's why I never knew, because it was just labeled 1 to 6. Is this panel the same as any of the other 296s, like the Roman version? Or
nothing. Yeah.
It's the same panel?
Yeah. I mean, that's, there is an even and odd down kind of where the signal input section is. There are 2 LEDs there, and something that Mark or Chip from MEMS would know, but I don't believe those are original. Like the MEMS one, or sorry, the ones at EMS that I played on does not have that, but there might have been, I forget, there might have been another version that does. There could have been 2 versions. And then it's also unclear, I think maybe on Roman's version, it's the input signal that drives those, and where this one is actually the output signal that's driving these. So we'll see the even and odd kind of toggle back and forth depending on what is being filtered or what bands those are going through.
There are likely multiple versions of the original Buchla 296.
There could be. I mean, because there were a lot of, like the 258, there was 4 or 5 or something like revs. That.
There are 2 versions of the 296E. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it has something to do with the pulse out down at the bottom, but yeah, they're slightly different.
Oh,
and some people say the original one sounds better. I don't know if that's sort of confirmation bias, but yeah, they're so there are 2 of those. Yeah, I wish we had a master list of every single rev of every module so that we would always know.
And on a timeline.
Timeline.
That, yeah.
That would be really nice.
That's the stuff that is like, oh man, like those ideas, like, we should do that. Or it's not really we should do that. It's more like, I hope somebody
should do that.
Has the time to research all that and make that happen.
I'll pay $50 to somebody who does that.
I would love to go fund that. So I think probably the best way to start breaking this thing down is actually starting at the top with all its outputs. Because there's 3 different sections of outputs. We've got a sawtooth oscillator from the 259 programmable complex waveform generator going into the all input, as there's 3 inputs in the signal input section, an even or an odd. I guess what maybe to break this down, further, even an odd refers to each of these bands that are labeled 0 through F.
Yeah.
So
and 0 is considered even.
Yes.
Yep.
And then odd, and it kind of goes, back and forth. So it's kind of like two sets of 8. Single band pass.
The 1 to 16 makes that much easier, by the way, than trying to figure out if E is is odd. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the
post-it note up there.
The blue and purple kind of like helps.
Oh yeah, because you can look above it, and if it's purple, then
it's
an
odd.
odd, or it's an odd.
Yeah, and blue's
because we start at 0, and 0 is considered even here. So yeah.
So the first output we have is a comb filter output, and so this basically, if you put the input into the all section, it's going to go through those frequencies and kind of delineate, this negative 100 section is going to come out of the even section, and then the 150 band is going to come out of the odd section. And so you can kind of like split these up in a stereo section, or you could run 2 different signals through here, and it's just going to comb out all the either even frequencies or the odd frequencies from that sound. So kind of scrapes out different frequencies, which gives you a total different tonal character for something. It's a filter in itself. So one other thing I wanted to, just like the detail of this panel that I like, or actually
There's a lot going on here, man.
Yeah, but like look how it says negative 100. So this kind of
minus or less than 100. Yeah.
Yeah, less than 100 to
greater than 10K.
Yeah. And then when we come look at this like program control, it has
100 to 10K.
And then it has all those specific dots are the actual bands that are going around this knob. Like there's 16.
So the 100 there, is that less than 100 or actually 100, or does it go slightly past that?
I guess whatever you're putting into and what's actually coming through it. But if you go to the 630, it's going to be
the 630 band.
Yeah.
Wow.
Around that. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, but because I was looking at the decibel level in the middle, so we'll get to all that stuff, but it's different from the 296E. And I had one, and it works the same way for the most part. Mm-hmm. But the panel is so different that it might as well be a completely different module. It is, but you get what I mean. The 296E is not really a 296. It is and it isn't. This is really wild.
Yeah. So okay, so let's just hear the sounds. This is a sawtooth oscillator, like I said, coming from the 259, and this is just a mono kind of signal. And then if we turn up the even output, which I have going to our left, and then the odd section going to the right, we're basically getting the same.
Oh yeah. Slightly different, of course, because the 292.
Yeah, going through a little bit, different circuitry.
But close enough to be the same.
Yeah. And that's all it is. It's fixed. There's nothing anywhere else on the panel that's going to...
This is the end of the show, then?
Yeah, that's it. The section down here, which is like we're kind of...
The program spectrum transfer?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're jumping all over the place, aren't we?
It's got to,
so much to take in.
This actually does have an effect. And so this is
that moves the odd to the even to the odd, right?
No.
Oh, okay, that's the different...
This is like, I believe there is some sort of manual, and this is on, I think, the 296E.
Yeah.
But it's basically boosting like the higher end frequency. It's kind of like boosting the gain.
Oh, because you were twisting the pre-emphasis.
Yeah. On the odd. So it's basically like it's gain for the signal. So I'll just have this one up so you can kind of hear me.
Yeah, on the 296E, Kyle, you press a green button to go through these different modes, and then it changes what happens with the knobs. Okay. So that's different here than the 296, of course. I usually left those all the way up.
Yeah.
They go all the way to F.
They're here in this programmable or programmed spectrum transfer section for a reason which we'll get into later, but they in my because I do have a version of this, the Roman version, and it feels like on the Roman version like these things are cranked already.
Yeah.
So this one feels like you have a bit more nuance, like you can get to that kind of cranked Roman section, which you can blast even further with these, if you kind of crank it up most of the way, you're getting to there. So
when you crank those up, then it would change the volume relative to because there are these decibel indicators here in the middle on the sliders. Would that pre-emphasis?
I think you're boosting the signal before it's going through those filters.
I see.
So that's like it's that gain and everything
will have
plus an effect
on that. Plus 6 on whatever the signal after it's been boosted by the pre-emphasis.
Potentially,
I
guess
we'll play with it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's so much to say and look. It's really fun. It's awesome. It's just so different and it's really, really cool.
So let's go. So
it's like I'm looking at these frequency and width inputs too.
You didn't have those, so we'll definitely. So before we get to there, we're gonna move over to the attenuator outputs.
What attenuator controls that?
And so the sliders.
Oh, the sliders
are the attenuators. So This is basically the only section where the sliders are active.
I think that's a really important thing to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's just different designations with the different output sections for better and worse. Like there's sometimes where, as we'll get to, like I'm using the programmed outputs and then it's like, oh, I wish I could just goose something with the slider, but no, I've got to use the attenuator outputs, which is another either 1 or 2 outputs that's going to go into a mixer or anything like that. So it can definitely eat up a lot of mixer space if you want it to.
Yep.
But also one of the things that's great about Buchla is it gives you all those options. So
you have a 227E, so you could do all kinds of things with the submixer and the different channels and route to the 292. We don't really have very many mixers in the Buchla world, but then again, we kind of do. They're just not really mixers. But that's a topic for another show.
That's
it's something I've been experiencing lately with using my control and signal router as a matrix mixer.
Oh yeah.
We're in this attenuator outputs thing, and I'm using a section thing, and I'm applying my 296E knowledge, and there's that green button where you scan through the modes, and there's an LED that lights up the mode. So we have a section comb filter output, attenuator output, pre-programmed output. Those are different modes
within you just have like a
and so they were discretely different. You couldn't get both of them at the same time.
Yep.
So that makes a lot of sense now that I'm seeing this on the panel. But you could take the outputs from comb filter outputs and attenuator outputs
and program output.
And then the 296E, you could multi-select the modes depending on
you can have multiple LEDs set up at the same time. That's right.
So I like this a little bit more, but I get why there's a difference.
So
that's cool.
So now we're just based all on these sliders. So we can kind of basically do what we did with the comb filter mode, because if we go all evens, which is going to be every blue slider up, that's kind of really similar to what we just heard. We can turn the other.
Now it sounds like a 262V.
We're getting so it is kind of funny that we're doing these episodes back to back because he did pull, which he kind of mentions, pulls a lot from this module for that harmonic oscillator. But yeah, I mean, this is like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure I saw the 296E first, but just when you start seeing people like kind of draw the specific frequencies out of things,
like a graphic equalizer on old hi-fis. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were, like 64 band. That's what it reminds me of. And you could shape the sound. You can look at the shape of the sound, or the shape of the modulation of the sound, the shape of the filter, with the position of the sliders.
Yeah.
And you could drag it up and down and really dial it in. So let me grab a slider. I want to see what that up here. It's cool because it has pretty good resolution.
Yeah.
I can't measure minus 18 here, but I can. Because really, all you're doing with the sliders is changing the amplitude of that frequency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of that frequency output, I should say.
Yeah. So that's the 630 bands.
Yeah. Wow. Much better control than the 296.
Oh yeah.
Swiping on the LEDs. That thing's really cool, but this you get a lot more fine-grained control.
Yeah, you go back and forth. I mean, I think because you have all those shared programmable sections, like you need that visual feedback.
Yeah.
Where this thing can be a bit more static. You can kind of, if you're using the attenuator outputs, like, I mean, you can look at where the sliders are and that makes sense. But you can kind of be in other modes where this is doing a lot of stuff but has nothing to do. If you're not using the attenuator outputs, you don't really have that much visual feedback of what is happening with the sound. I mean, I guess to further describe the sound, like right now I'm just turning up kind of a bunch of mid bands.
Yeah,
and
it's like a bell curve.
Yeah, we're kind of like halfway up. And then, you can bring in more low end.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to do if you were, spraying this all out in a stereo setting. So it's kind of nice to balance things out. I find like if you want kind of a stereo balance, you would bring up two bands at the same time to kind of even things out.
Yeah.
So I think it's somewhat useful. I've had fun with this setting. I mean, to just to drone on like we're doing. You just put some, something that has a lot of a sound that has a lot of harmonics in there, and even like shifting through that. I can just play on those forever. But it is also kind of nice to like if you're really sculpting a sound. I'll sometimes do it like with the delay modules. I would run repeats through this and do one through the odd and one through the even, and can really kind of just do a couple weird bands of that and then change them later on.
There was one of the tracks on 7.waves from, like I said, I don't remember how long ago that was now. But anyway, I used the 296E with the 272E. And it's the one where the broadcast was somebody reading Christmas stories. Mm-hmm. And I sent that through the 296E, and then took the output back into the 296E to filter out a lot of the, I guess not filter it out, but to change the how it sounded for the woman's voice, because she didn't have much inflection in the storytelling. So I was adding in some inflection in her voice by modulating the volume of those different bands. And that's like, I just randomly did that. I want to make this sound interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of discovered it. Because when you think about what you're going to do with a comb filter, it's sort of just on the basics of it's like, it's a comb filter. I have synthesizers that have a knob that says comb filter that I can turn.
Yeah.
But this is a lot more than that, because we haven't even gotten into the individual audio outputs. And then you can modulate with CV on the bottom, and basically do amplitude modulation of a single. What do we call these channels? What are these? Frequency
bands.
range? Bands, yeah.
Is
Bands, there we go.
What I kind of refer them to. So yeah, I mean, I guess
it's like a band pass filter, and so I guess those are
slash
bands.
filter bank /
Yeah, and then when you start doing all the crazy modulation and patching it back into itself, and then with the 296C doing the spectrum transfer and all of that, you don't. I mean, it's like it just takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, I mean,
really, really fast.
Yeah, so deep, so many different ways to attack it. You did kind of mention these, which they aren't labeled specifically, but there's 16 individual outputs for each of these bands. Like we discussed on the harmonic oscillator, they're just static. The attenuators don't there's no VCA attached to it. It just is an output. So like right now we can take these, take the odd output and put that into the 296 and 2.5K output. And
it just gives you just the output of that band.
Yeah,
with no modulation or anything on it.
No, nothing you can do. It's just like boom, static. So I'm always just like, okay, well, what's that?
You patch it back into itself, right?
What is that good for? When patch it back. I mean, I guess if you have a mixer or that you could then, that is something you could potentially do. Like instead of this oscillator going direct, put it into this.
Mm-hmm.
Come out of the 292. Maybe come out of the all, and then you could patch other frequencies in here, and then somehow kind of make that work. I haven't really, to where in my mind I would, instead of using these individual bands, like I was saying, run to delay repeats through or something to kind of tweak those, I would just use the attenuator outputs with the sliders, because then you can just do the same thing that we just did.
Yeah.
But then we can add more, or we can change as much faster than...
Right. But if you had, I'm going to say 5 and A outputs, you would mix them with the attenuator outputs. So any modulation on those bands would be affected in the even odd out, and you would have the original sort of the unmolested output of that band also. Right?
If you're saying if we ran it through another mixer and ran it back
if we sent it to a 207 or something. Because then that would be, like for a saw wave like this, maybe not particularly interesting, but for something where the audio has, or the sound has a lot of modulation before it goes into the 296, I can imagine, that being something you want to do there. And then take those two, this is kind of a silly example, but the 2 band output into your DAW, for example, and just have those that, especially with these low frequencies, the left side, taking just those and using them for bass, like if you were modulating with the 282 or the 281E, there are scenarios there, but it gets out of control pretty quick, because with 16 outputs, you have essentially 8 channels of input on the 227, sort of. And so you'd run. You can't do that for a lot, but I could see taking some things and having that copy.
Yeah. One thing I have, I think, done with those before is
like with the shift register, for example.
Yeah.
Or the 264. We're going to manipulate the pitch of something, and you want to have the original and then the modulated signal.
I've used them for FM inputs on oscillators, just taking, because the different frequency bands, even though it's going to be the same kind of pitch, like it's still going to act
the 291 or the 285 or modulation signals. That would be really great, actually. That's something we should play with later.
So those are the bands, or that's the attenuator outputs. Very fun to use.
Yeah, it is. I remember dragging my finger left and right on the 296E.
Do we want to go through like every single band, or like do you want to do the white noise thing?
let's do the white. Let's honor Todd Barton and do the white noise thing. Because with the white noise and you modulate with an envelope one band, you can really hear, what's going on.
Yeah.
When doing modulation of the band without having to sort of process what the original sound is.
So yeah, I've just got flat white noise in here. I don't know if I should do I'm not going to do the positive 3 dB, but here's the one, or the
I'm too old to hear that.
100 and below. Here's
you got to get into the letters before I can hear it. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's much more prominent. That's 150. 250.
That's a great sound. Isn't it, though?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do use this for noise a lot.
Some Nine Inch Nails, like Warm Place. That's what it reminded me of.
350. 500. 630. That's haunting.
Yeah, I like the
one.
hollowness.
Yeah,
in those
those kind of mid ones. That was 800. We're up to 1,000 now.
Like bugs at night.
I feel like bugs come up at like 5K, 1.3K.
I think bugs come up at 5K.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I was going.
I'm gonna sample that and use it.
It's like the high pitch.
It's starting to sound like the bullfrogs outside your window.
Yeah, okay. They're coming.
Yeah.
Where spring is about to be
That's
sprung.
an understatement.
We're at 2.6K. 3.5.
It's so thin. It's really getting back into noise. Now I feel like I'm taking a hearing test.
Yeah.
I can click that little thing.
Barely hear that.
I can hear that one really well. I can't hear the millennial frequency. I can only hear the Gen X. The Gen X band.
Going back to what I was saying about, I'm going to pull out the noise and then like to me that sounds like some sort of a bug sounds.
Yeah.
Up in the 3.5 to 8K.
Yeah.
There. That's a little bit of...
yeah, with some slight modulation, it would definitely sound like I'm in a forest full of bugs.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do a cricket chirp with this and record that and then play it back during the show. When we say something to a guest and they just sit there.
Or I like...
That'd be easy to do, actually.
In like 3 weeks, start blaring that out my window and just have like... look out there and there's just a billion frogs staring back. Back at me.
Only the males.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We're now going to move over to the programmed outputs. So now this starts to bring in anything that says program on the panel.
That's convenient. So program control in the lower left and programmed spectrum transfer. And then on the right.
Down below for that
local program inputs.
Local program inputs. So it's kind of like now all the bottom section, which is kind of like why I wanted to go as you move to the right.
Yeah. Stuff
on the panel.
Yeah. So then just to clarify, and bear with me, Kyle, when we were dealing with the white noise coming out of the attenuator outputs.
Yeah.
Control voltage going into local program inputs wouldn't have done anything?
Wouldn't do anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Program control wouldn't do anything.
Yep.
The odd and even preemphasis will. That's the thing that I've found that like I think will work on every section.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back to that oscillator, and so yeah, as we can see, we can bring up these. Nothing is.
Yeah, the sliders don't do anything.
Is happening. So we'll kind of go. I guess we'll start in the program control. And this has a center frequency knob and then CV attenuated input, and then a width knob and CV input. So this is kind of where this thing acts like a sweepable bandpass filter, or filter that you can address with CV. And much like what we did with the harmonic oscillator in the last episode, we can kind of narrow its focus down to a few, like what we were dealing with harmonics then, we're doing with frequencies now.
Yeah.
And make that really narrow to just have like one band at a time. And then as we're playing with the odd and even programmed outs, I can kind of have a stereo effect depending on how, because it's still kind of even, splitting those evens to a left and odds to a right, or however you want to patch it up. But there's a lot of cool functionality in this. So as we can hear right now, I have like on the mixer these channels turned up, but we don't hear anything because we don't have the width control turned up. The width is kind of all the way down, so there's no sounds coming through, which basically makes it a VCA.
And will 100 to 10K do anything for all of this?
So this is where this knob comes into play. So I'll turn it all the way up. So now we're at max with the width control. So this is all of the frequency bands coming through. It sounds very similar to what we did with the attenuator outputs all the way up. This sounds what it's like when we had the comb filters in.
Yeah.
Kind of doing the same thing. But as we narrow its focus, so we go to like halfway up. Now this is based on the center frequency. We're kind of dropping off, and I have the center frequency kind of turned all the way up. It's probably in the 1 to 1.3K range.
Yeah, it's like in the 12 o'clock position.
Yeah. And because we have half of it, it's probably going to maybe 500 to like 2.6, where our very low and very high bands we're not hearing those.
Yeah.
And then we can use that knob to sweep around. So I sweep it down to the 100 range. And then all the way up to the 10K range. It's got that awesome that sound to me is...
Yeah, that kind of
sing-songy, like you get that filtered tone.
Yeah.
When sweeping a filter.
When my wife and I were at a Eurorack event in Portland years ago, before I met you, before Kyle, BK.
Yeah, BK.
And like Roger Lynn was there, and it was really cool. Right before all this stuff really took off, 4MS was there showing their brand new sphere. What was that thing called? Not the spherical wave. The the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's got the all the really cool lights around a certain knob.
I was just totally spaced on the name of it, but it's the original one. But
sorry, Eurorack users.
Yeah, I had it in my mind and it went away. But we were watching the demo of that, and you could turn the knob and it would make that sound, and it had all the pretty lights and stuff. And my wife was like, "That's awesome. You should get one of those." And so I did, and it was inscrutable, and I couldn't figure it out. But anyway, that sound is just it's just that sound, and every time I hear it, I think that's just a really great sound.
Yeah,
and it's so simple.
And it just gives this thing, one of the characteristics that this module itself brings to the sound of a system.
It all goes back to harmonic series, which we won't get into right now, but there's a really good Andrew Huang video about harmonic series, but the harmonic series stuff, and I'm reading a really great book about it, but that kind of explains why we like that sound, because of the relative. It has to do with the relative harmonics as we sweep through it and stuff. But it's just a great sound. So yeah, check out that Andrew Huang video about harmonic series to get an idea of what I'm stammering through.
So yeah, I've got this width control turned all the way down. So what's cool is if you kind of barely bring it up. Like right now, I don't know if you can barely hear it. It's like right in your right ear. Yeah, we're getting to the territory where it's so narrow that it's just focusing on one band at a time. And because these even and odd bands are split up, that's why we're only hearing on the right. So if we go down to 100, turn up a little bit more. So now we're hearing there's a very minimal on the left.
It's a rumbling sound, maybe.
Yeah, so now we're at like 150, and now it's on the right.
Turn your speakers up, folks. There it is.
There's a little bit on both now. So you can hear I'm kind of crossfading between the two.
I love that sound.
Yeah, so it's really cool. Obviously, you don't get as much amplitude out of it because you're just restricting it to this.
Could you with the pre-emphasis knobs?
So we can
Spoiler. Oh yeah.
we crank those up a bit. We'll crank them both up so then they'll. Yeah.
Loses some of the subtlety, but
Yeah. But that's what's there. You know, if this is the kind of thing you're going for, let me crank them up all the way.
yeah.
Yeah, that's rad. I'll also have you. Let's see here.
Love that
Right
sound.
about there. If you look at the inputs, or maybe this is probably more based on. We've kind of just sat on this same frequency the whole time.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see as I change the frequency, those LEDs.
Oh yeah. So the even and odd LEDs are now they're full on. Now they're off. Are they? Oh yeah. Okay.
So depending on kind of what band has more, or where that fundamental, I think, frequency is where that LED lights up, which is kind of a
Interesting.
cool function. So
That's really geeky.
right?
You know, like that's good for process music, I think. Oh yeah, man, that's a great sound.
So you always get a bump where
Can you modulate that, by the way?
that fundamental is. Yeah. So let's
How you were getting that awesome sound right there. I'm throwing Kyle a little bit off his planned patch. I'm sorry about that, but
no, we're good.
I'm hearing some really cool stuff.
I'm gonna patch some kind
Sounds
of
amazing,
slewed random through it. So I've got it basically set down to 100, and then I have it positively CV affecting the frequency, so it's going up from there. This is like a quantized random voltage that's going through the integrator on the 266, so it's a little bit slewed. This is more stepped now.
Yeah, I like the slewed.
But it's kind of nice to make it a little bit more fluctuating.
Do you hear that? Maybe it's just my in-ear monitors, but there's almost like a snare sound.
There could be. It could be a noise. Like I know on my Roman version, there are certain, and actually, like, it sounds like I can maybe get this fixed, but like some bands just have like some noise in them, so when it crosses over that band, you might get a little
Yeah, I had to really focus to hear it.
Of noise.
And I'm using in-ear monitors, so they're not going to color the sound at all.
Yeah, so I've got, this turned up a little bit, so the focus is pretty narrow. I can turn up, so now we're kind of full from the lowest setting to the highest. What I really like about this too, we can bring this down. We can kind of switch where, because think of this like as like this VCA, you can kind of set it to be high, right? And so then we're going to hear the highest bands first when we turn up the width control.
You turn the width control from nothing to max.
Yeah, instead of...
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So in a way you can kind of... I think it's like, well, this is more like the low pass setting, where if you have it set up, this is more of the high pass.
Yeah. That's cool.
And then you can, change the direction of that CV.
I really like this. I kind of want one now.
It's a good module. So then what we could also do is modulate the width control. So the width control doesn't have a CV attenuverter. It's just a direct in. I find it's really nice to have some control over the CV that before going into it. So if you've got like a CV processor that you can attenuate your CV signal a bit, because there's so much kind of like, richness and like minutia in the small, when you barely have the max
Yeah.
turned up, you know, where
Yeah.
if you're just bouncing from low to high, you're not getting
Right.
a bunch. So I'm going to use the stored random voltage on the 266 that has the probability distribution, where I can just have it set to low random outputs coming, so it's not going to give me a bunch of high voltages. It's going to kind of keep the width clamped down a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we can always, then you can modulate this and you can kind of go to the highs, and it's going to be open a lot more.
Can you go back to the, and then just slow the signal way down just to kind of are you able to do that with your pulse input? Well, I don't want to mess up your patch, so
Yeah, I'm like,
don't worry about it. But I just wanted to hear a little bit of differentiation between the things, but I don't want you to mess up your
no, let's here, let's try this.
I was like, damn it, Rob, are you in here?
All right, I'm gonna have a slow.
There we go. Yeah.
Slow looping 281. Oh wait, but then I don't.
You don't have the slew in there, but there we go.
Is this what you're looking for?
Yeah, I just wanted to hear. Yeah, because I was just trying to listen for the change in the sound, just to hear kind of. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so I'm gonna.
There's like the abruptness in a good way, but I just couldn't tell if it was bleeding over or if it was just in discrete sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. Oh, don't you love that?
Yeah.
And it's such a basic sound too. Just a saw wave. Man.
Yeah.
That sounds so good.
So that's kind of.
Thanks for that, by the way. Thanks for humoring me.
But of course.
Let's fix your patch before we go back on.
Let's see if I can get back there.
I do this on purpose.
That's basically the gist of that section. I think I use that more than anything else. I mean, I use this thing a lot of different ways, but definitely I'm using the programmed outputs a bit more than and CV controlling things.
I did with the 296E. Yeah.
It's just a great sound.
That's how I got the alien sounds on Fall Into the Atmosphere, the sort of alien transmission that people really liked on the last track. It's like a clicking, like a type sound, and then there's some other stuff in it. Which you have to really listen for.
Got the chittering of a...
The 296E was the only way I can't think of another way I could do that.
Yeah.
And I loved that module. Funny story, I had it in the top of my 24U, and the 272E radio antenna thingy was right behind it. Mm-hmm. And so I noticed that the 296E LEDs would just start going crazy. They would just start going up, but didn't change the sound. It was just the LED. The back of the 296E was making contact with the 272E antenna. I was like, yeah, only in Buchla, right?
You know, think about this. Yeah.
Like only in Buchla do I have to put electrical tape in my 297 to break a contact.
Yeah, I've got some electric. Yeah, I've had some.
I don't mind. It's just part of the charm of.
Yeah, I was having an electrical tape situation yesterday.
Oh yeah, because did you have a shorting thing?
Something, yeah. Basically, nothing was coming out of my C output in quadraphotic space.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that these are like electronics.
Yeah.
You know, you buy a Korg Prophecy or a Kronos, and it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But when you buy these Buchla modules, you're dealing in electronics. And like, if the screws were too tight on my case, then I wouldn't get sound out of the submixer.
Yeah.
My 227. So anyway, washers.
Washers, the more you know.
That was the only way I could fix it. That was in the 12U, but that's also a story for another show.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so we kind of talked about this, about being a VCA, right? Because we have this with control that's like...
the program control being a VCA? Yeah.
Which which I love because I don't know, in my decent sized system, I've got my my quad low pass gate, and I have 4 oscillators. I can go to that, but sometimes like I don't have, if I want to do some noise stuff, I don't have any way to clamp that down or modulate the amplitude of that. But you can run it through here, and you have basically a VCA that you can use. That also does really cool kind of filtering stuff. But what's awesome about the local program inputs, which line the bottom of the entire module, is then this is basically each band's VCA.
Right.
So you can plug, a bunch of different modulation, CV sources in here and modulate all of these bands separately. Also something that we kind of looked into on the harmonic oscillator last time. So with this, we're actually going to we're going to use 2 sounds now. So we've got the sawtooth oscillator, and I'm going to bring in the principal oscillator as well on this one. So we're going to have 2 sounds into the even and odd inputs. And so now these, like everything that we hear from the sawtooth oscillator is going to be kind of like the even output. Actually, you know what? I'm going to switch that up now that I say that. I'm going to have everything come out of the all like mono output for this one. So I have a pattern set up on the MARF of 4 different pulse outputs. Those are going into the 4 sections of the 281. And I'm going to start kind of trying to build like a percussive patch out of these 2 oscillators through the 296.
And you didn't give me a demo of this before we started, so I'm really excited.
So
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, it's that 0-1. So I'm gonna so I've plugged in. What I'm thinking is like kind of like my bass or my kick drum type of sound, which is going to be the lowest section. And then because bananas are amazing, we can then plug this into also the
jumpering it kind of.
Yeah, jumpering it, and I can include other bands for the same rhythmic hit.
Yeah.
So that's another tone. And this is off of the same oscillator because we're both in the blue ones, but I could go to 1 instead and try and pick up some of its low frequency information instead. Then I can bring in the next section.
Cool.
And we can start incorporating other tones around this. Not getting much out of that one. That could be, even out that sound a bit.
This reminds me of the Roland TR-707 a little bit.
Let's see. I've done that one. Let's try.
Oh, I like that.
So now this one is going into A. I'm going to put in now the last one too, and then I'll kind of jumper off of these, and we'll just kind of mix through with more jumper cables to bring in more bands to see what fits what sound.
Yeah.
So I'll plug this into.
That channel is.
That's right.
There we go. So there's your hi-hats.
Yeah. So we can jumper off the hi-hats, maybe get more click from that.
Yeah. You used the 296 to make that blast beat demo for me at EMS, right?
No, that was the 288.
That's right, yeah.
We'll jump back to this one that's in A, and we'll kind of play around with stuff around that to see what...
Kyle's my go-to guy for making drum sounds with Buchla. Like, Kyle, I've got a 223E and a 251E. What can I do for drum sounds? We can bang a banana cable against it and record it with the mic.
Do I like that? Or maybe I like that one.
But, clap with a clap with the high frequencies filtered out.
So it's like my kick drum, I'm jumping up to like maybe the 800 to see just what that sounds like, if I can,
What are the mouth harp? Is that what that's called?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. You have a jug that like blowing into a jug and maybe a cigar box banjo.
Yep.
It's really cool.
That doesn't do too much. So yeah, you get the idea.
Yeah.
This is just of like one oscillator, and you're getting 4 different sounds from it. I think is what's kind of cool.
Yeah.
From this thing, I'm curious if I were to just try this with white noise instead of these oscillators to see what this would sound like. So I'll pull out
a little bit more drums.
This.
Whoa. There's that 9 Inch Nails sound.
Yeah, that's like
I think Broken, or maybe Pretty Hate Machine.
Yeah, Broken. I'm kind of into that. Yeah. And there's probably better, like, I can start repatching this.
down in it. Does you hear it, right? You hear down in it.
Yeah. That's funny.
He's listening to the show. He's like, yeah, these guys figured it out.
296 the whole time.
It'd be awesome to find out Trent Reznor listened to the show. Because he sued us for playing.
That's how he finds the show. Cease and desist. There we go. Now this higher band, like that, gives us more information.
This is really cool. I mean, kidding aside, you can do some pretty cool stuff with this percussive sound here,
Yeah.
Doing some control and some modulation.
I mean, yes, I'm taking up a whole 281 to do this, right? But it is kind of cool that's just noise that's supplying this.
Yeah. Well, folks who have like Lionel and others who have 50U, or Andrew with 2 of these and 4 281s, and that's not, sounds ridiculous, but it's not actually outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about preset lockups with that. But I love that.
So I've just kind of like spread them a bit. Now we're back in kind of stereo, which is, like that kick drum is very heavy on the right, but you could probably pull in other bands with the kick drum to even that out a bit more.
Yeah. To
have different frequencies kind of pop up on both the left and right outputs.
So my in-ear monitors, they're transparent, so they don't have any bass, any saturation of bass. In your headphones, are you hearing more bass from the
I'm hearing more bass on like kick on the right is a bit more.
Yeah, I can hear that it is bass, but I don't have any booming.
Yeah, I mean it's not.
It's a kick drum, not a bass drum.
Yeah,
yeah. Can you do a tuba sound
with white noise? Maybe, I don't know. Give me a lifetime. Figure that out.
What a great module, man!
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, 16 individual VCA, throw some weird, just complex sounds in there, just droning oscillators. I mean, I can show you what we were working with. That's...
Got that and white noise.
Yeah, it's like that, and then... So that's what we were working with our originals.
A lot more harmonics there, but still not a really complex sound.
Yeah.
Because you're only doing amplitude modulation on the principal oscillator, right? You weren't doing any folding.
Trying to kind of maybe get some stuff going in more of the higher register of the frequency spectrum. Okay, so maybe for ease of... Let's pull this out here. We're going to show off this last section. And this is now going to the programmed spectrum transfer, which is basically just a way to do with these switches, you're able to run kind of all the frequency content that's coming in through the input, through these filters, and throwing that on the other sound.
Right.
You're transferring its spectra onto the other one, which is basically a good way to do some vocoding. So I'm going to plug that oscillator into the even output, and I'm going to plug this mic preamp into the odd output, or input, sorry. I'm going to run this cable over here. And...
oh boy.
So after some mic cable technical difficulties, we've got this figured out. So yes, we've got this sawtooth oscillator going into the even output, or input, sorry, I keep saying that. The mic preamp from the 227E going into the odd, and I've flipped up the odd odd going into the even bands. So now Robert's voice.
It's a vocoder. It's a vocoder. Vocoder.
So yeah, we've also got pitch from the 218E on my music easel going into the keyboard input on the sawtooth wave. So he's able to.
Yeah, it's really low like this. Audio command. Remember I showed Battlestar Galactica from the 70s? Audio command. The Galactica has escaped.
It's so funny, like, because I was messing with this yesterday, and I would keep trying to match the pitch.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you have to just really try not to.
And so I ended up like pulling my headphones off so I couldn't hear it, and I was just doing it and recording it so I could listen back later to see if it was somewhat intelligible. And it kind of was. I think your voice will also come through my microphone, so hopefully people are maybe hearing some intelligible stuff. But if you start really low. You just like gained some like 10 feet in your vocal cords is like what the. So I do have the pre-emphasis turned up all the way. This I think is why they kind of had this in here, because if we do without the pre-emphasis, yeah, so it's boosting the highs of your input signal, and so then it's gonna activate these upper frequency ranges.
It's okay. This is really...
We can also try... Let's try doing a square wave instead.
Square wave. That's the same audio command. That's it.
This is square wave.
That's the same.
I mean, you got to think about its like peaks and what it's going to, because if you do like a triangle, it's not as... Its peak is of the wave is
It's more like monotone, like a monotone.
Yeah, go back to square.
So this sound, it's like the S's, those pluses and stuff.
Yeah.
Come through and like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's the kind of where the robot style.
But it's funny because you could have a static pitch on your voice and not sing to it, but it's so hard to not do that, If we bring in now this switch, then we should be able to hear you as well.
Oh, okay, I can cover myself.
Yeah, so we can like bring down this and kind of bring up your pre-emphasis.
Yeah. I want to cover my voice. It just sounds like I have a bad connection.
Yeah, but
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
so we turn down so now if you talk.
Now if I talk. Oh, yeah, that's kind of really nice.
they're really nice, kind of mixed together.
Yeah, and you sound like you're playing through like a bad AM, like you're a caller on some like old station from like the 80s or something like that.
Well, President Carter reached the White House today.
We're kind of overblowing the preamp and stuff, but
it's gonna blow it out. It does have that sort of. The Winter Games in Lake Placid started today with the U.S. versus Russia hockey being won with the underdog USA team. President Carter visited.
Is this a miracle? Is your
spoilers?
So
the AM thing. That's a really, really good way of putting that. It definitely has that sort of shortwave.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah.
This is fun.
So, I mean, look, we're doing vocoding right now in this thing.
Yeah, taking it for granted. So this is a higher pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With your voice mixed in, so it's like kind of cool that you can... We'll see how this mixes on the episode and what you come through, but this may be like now people are actually hearing what you're saying, but...
Maybe. It doesn't... with it mixed together, it has that early cell phone thing where like the carrier wave is getting through. You kind of hear my voice, but then it's got that robotic, like Zoom at the beginning of the pandemic.
You know, actually, I got this module right before the pandemic, I think.
Really?
Hit. I think so. No.
Not this one, though.
No, my 296. No, sorry, I got it at the beginning of 2001. So sorry, I'm already.
2001. Wow, you're gonna go for
2021. Sorry. Basically had this thing for a year, but when I first got it, I was like, we were on a Zoom call, meeting, and I started running the audio from the Zoom through this, and so then when all my coworkers started to talk, I would then just modulate their voices and stuff, and it made the experience a bit more fun.
So it was like, Kyle, we need to talk about your TPS reports. Did you get the memo?
I just started asking where my stapler was, and
there's a new cover sheet for your TPS reports.
So,
Kyle, you're fired.
Like, wait, what? Hold on. Let me turn this thing off. All right. Should we end this section of it? We can go back to hearing your actual voice.
I guess.
Okay.
It's been kind of fun.
So
that's
yeah,
fun.
Yeah,
Thanks,
right.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So many cool different sections of this thing. So we haven't really gone into the envelope follower outputs. I think I'm gonna do that in a separate section.
Yeah, that's a lot of patching.
It is, and I'll kind of show off like another cool thing that I've had fun doing is self-patching it. Patching its either programmed outputs or attenuated outputs or both, because there's two inputs in here, and kind of creating some wild feedback, and then that's a really fun way to either you're getting crazy sounds if you want to use those, but if you don't want to use those, you can then use the envelope follower outs because they're kind of just doing wild CV jumpy things to use in your system. I mean, that's also 16 CV outs for this thing.
Yeah, that you can patch back into the inputs. Yeah,
so like what we were doing with the Spectrum output, I think what we basically could have done too is if we patched all, like, let's say we if you patch all the odd jacks into even inputs on the local program inputs, we could have got the same effect.
I've seen that with 2 of these.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I'm glad we finally got to.
Yeah, me too. Thanks to the folks at MEMS for this to us. This was really, really fun. Yeah, man. Just I think that's looks wise. It's one of the classic Buchla modules, like the 259 with the correct Rogans. It's one of those, and the MARF. They're kind of like, these are Buchla modules.
Yeah, it took me a while to I think it was Todd. One of the many interviews of listening to that somebody did with Todd, kind of asking him why was the easel so special to him, or why does he like that interface so much? And it was just sliders, and it's I didn't quite think of that, and just being oh yeah, it is an amazing way to interface with something, because you can do multiple things at once, where you can only kind of turn 2 knobs at one time if you're just dealing with all knob stuff. So just to have 16 sliders in that small space, it's
like with the MARF
dream. That's why I like the MARF.
Versus the 250E. The conversation we've had a couple of times just about the immediacy of the sliders versus turning all those knobs.
And just the more linearity of it. And
we can see the shape of this control voltage change on the MARF. I can see what's gonna happen with it. With generally speaking, I really like that. I like ADSRs with sliders also, and synthesizers, because I can see the shape of the envelope. But they take up more room, but anyway,
it's a trade, but it's better to interface it. So then, are you going to use it more? It's always a trade off.
I mean, you can't not use it.
So
it's not like in Buchla where you don't really have to have a 281. In the other rest of the synthesizer world, you kind of got to have envelopes. Somebody's going to be like, no, you don't, because some obscure DK Synergy 2 had additive envelopes that were generated by 64 sine waves intersecting in the negative harmonics.
Make sure you give them your email address right now so they can
it's Kyle at... Because I'm standing where you were standing, so I'm you right now.
That's right, yeah. Okay, well,
this is fun.
This has been fun checking this out. Thanks for hanging out.
It was really fun. It was. It's a great module.